Hey guys, today I want to talk about something a lot of us aspire to do or to be, and that's sort of the digital nomad lifestyle. For those of you who don't know, I've been working full remote for about 5 or 4 months now. Occasionally I have to go into the office, which is about 30, 40 minutes away, but that's pretty rare at this point. I'd say once every 2 months I have to go into the office, and besides that, I'm working full remote. So I've been starting to do a little bit of that digital nomad sort of stuff. It's such a, almost a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's such a clickbait word of sorts. We're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to work and travel, which is something I'm doing a little bit of, and I have a couple trips planned to continue to do that, as well as what it is you're actually looking for, in my opinion. I'd like to take a moment to thank our long-term sponsor, Dev Mountain Coding Bootcamp. You can find out more information about them at devmountain.com. If you're looking for a coding bootcamp that is either full-stack web development or iOS development, UI, UX, quality assurance, might check out Dev Mountain. One of the cool things about their programs, they include housing with their tuition, so you can get up and go and really feel like you're living amongst other devs, and which I think is a very valuable thing. But find out more information about them and if it's right for you at devmountain.com. So I just got back from a 2-week trip with some buddies of mine who are also software engineers. So the three of us went out of town to see Kansas City, where one of them had some friends, and we got some food. We went to some sites. We, bought some souvenirs, and we didn't use a single day of PTO. We traveled on a Saturday and we came back on a Sunday. And I ended up using 1 day of PTO when I got back because I needed to recover a little bit. And more than anything else, I'm actually a little bit behind on planning my conference talk. But that's sort of why I wanted to talk a little bit about being a digital nomad, because it's essentially what has taken place the last 2 weeks. We booked an Airbnb, the three of us split it, and we all worked, Monday through Friday from the house, and just did our jobs like we would any other day, right? No real big difference. So the first thing that you sort of need to obviously be able to do is have a job that will make you a digital nomad, right? Something that can be done remotely. Software engineering is a very good choice for that, right? So I already do it remotely, and it works out great for that. One thing I would say is that a lot of people, when they're trying to get their first role to work remote, their very first job rather, I want to work remote, I want to work remote. You're going to have a very hard time getting a high-paying, good job working remote. And honestly, you're probably going to lose out on some of the better parts of being in-house, which is having access to top-tier developers. Hopefully you're not the only developer on staff, most likely not, and you'll be able to pick the brains of people who came before you, who have a lot more experience and can get better much rapidly. I account much of my growth as a developer and going and doubling my salary in 2 years and so on and so forth, and to one or two devs in particular who I was able to say, hey, I have the energy to run. Where do I run? And they say, run in this direction. And I did, right? And, no developer in-house is going to help you run, but they're most likely tell you what they did and what made them successful, and being able to pick their brains on a daily basis. Because you have to think, if you have access to other developers, that's a high quality resource, right? Like if you wanted to buy my time outside of work, it's $150 an hour. But if you're my coworker, for instance, and you're an aspiring junior developer, it's free. And so you can come over, we can talk about TypeScript, we can talk about your bug and help debug it, talk about anti-patterns that you are introducing into your code and how we can make those better, and we can talk about, how you're going to grow your skill set and grow as a developer, so that you can go and increase your salary, so that you can go and make sure you're in demand, so that you can go and make sure you become a senior developer as quickly as possible, and so on and so forth. So in that aspect, you might be missing out on a few things, and you're just taking a more challenging path if you're trying to get your first remote job. The easier path to take, and the more likely, I should say, I don't necessarily always recommend the easiest path, but I do think that there is some some wisdom that can be attained by going after the most probable path. And the most probable path to getting a remote dev job, in my opinion, is getting a few years of experience. Not many. I mean, I have about 3.5 or 4 at this point of actual dev work and about a year and a half of internship. So say get about 3-4 years of experience, get a job that allows you to work partially remote, a day or 2 a week. Most organizations nowadays will let you work remote at least 1 day a week, and then increase it steadily. And that's not to say like you're taking a job and you're going to slowly just stop showing up. But it is significantly easier to go from 1 or 2 days a week to 3 days a week to 4 days a week to 5 days a week. And now all of a sudden that you can go and live that sort of digital nomad lifestyle. And it may be also worth mentioning that you may not want to be full remote and do digital nomad. You may just want to travel for a bit. Like for me, for instance, I'm not on the road. I own my house. I love it. I like where I live, although I'll probably move down the road. But I don't necessarily want to be on the road all the time. But what would be fun would be to travel for 2-3 months at a time, or 2 weeks and do a little bit here, a little bit there. So, if you're already working partially remote and you can get up and go, you have the ability to, because you've already sort of proven your worth, right? It's much scarier for an employer who has someone who's never worked remote before to go and say, hey, go ahead and work fully remote for the next 6 to 8 weeks because we know you're going to be good at it, because they don't, right? And it's also worth mentioning that from talking with recruiters who have considered me for remote roles, like nowadays I'm very happy at where I'm at, right? I like my architect, I like my tech lead. 2 of my teammates are former developers that I got them jobs with the organization, so it's like we got the band back together. Like, it's a lot of fun, right, in that aspect. So if a organization reaches out to me, I typically have calls, but I ask a few things. Is it full remote? Because I'm never going back to, without a high pay increase, going back into the office, because there's I've just personally enjoyed not having a commute to work more than probably any other benefit that a organization can give me. And I'm also compensated very well and things like that. But there's a level of stress that lowers when you're a digital nomad, because you're not in the office with some very stressful people. And so, like, sort of what makes people quit jobs and why developers, I think, burn out every 18 months is a lot of that is you are surrounded nonstop by individuals who oftentimes aren't doing the work. So, like, software is unique in the fact where you are sort of the one doing all the work, all the actual work. Like, you can do all the planning, you can manage the Scrum the best, you can do all the QA, but at the end of the day, the developers are the one who have to build the product. And if there's no construction team, there's no house. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can buy the site, you can plan, you can do the blueprints, but you need the construction team to build the house, or you just have a dirt of land and money's being wasted while all these other people are, paid hourly salary, so it's not like a fixed cost, right? So sometimes you end up with bad dev support members, or just bad bosses, and that sort of layer of abstraction, that layer of difference, that working remote, it's one of the best feelings in the world because you're not constantly in it. It's almost like I was listening to a talk about cyberbullying, and there's this savage dad. It was like Ask Reddit, right? I shouldn't say talk. It was Ask Reddit, and it was like a video of Ask Reddit about cyberbullying, and it was about like most savage moments regarding that. And it's like the daughter asks, "How do I stop getting cyberbullying?" And the dad goes, closes the computer, and it's like, there, it's magic. And it's almost like that. That's what I think of, where at some point when you're remote, it's assuming that you handle it responsibly, you're able to sort of disconnect the things. But when you're in the office, it's much more of like, you're going to see these people nonstop. Not only when they send emails and messages, it's they're going to walk over to you. And I personally like remote because everything's documented, which means everyone's a little bit more cordial, which is a great thing. Another thing to keep in mind when you're doing, so there's obviously the very remote aspect with the digital nomad lifestyle, is a lot of people who aspire for that sort of lifestyle never have done it. And what do I mean by that? So the idea that you wouldn't enjoy traveling and working remotely is something that, if you've never done it, just seems like it's going to be the shit. It seems like, how could I not enjoy it? It seems like the greatest thing ever. But although I do enjoy it, I personally get homesick after about a week or so when I want to go back. And right now I'm not traveling with April and like our pets. I'm doing sort of some solo traveling with buddies and stuff like that and having some fun. But what I would recommend for you is to not hype it up beyond belief. And the reason for that is I don't think you should make plans that completely affect your life and your career until you've done it, right? That's one of the things that has always confused me about college to a degree, is you spend 4 to 6 years getting a degree to work in a field that you really have never gone and done like 2 weeks at. You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to be a nurse, for instance, before you go and invest all that time and energy, what I would suggest is going down to the hospital and seeing if you could volunteer and see what it's all about, and like see what's actually going on. I give this as a example of somebody who I did 6 months at a fire tech school to go and get my EMT certification. And I was doing like fire tech classes to go and be a firefighter many years ago. And I was planning on working as an EMT, going and getting my paramedic certification, or whatever they call it, and then working as a paramedic, and all while going to get a bachelor's at one of the Cal States that had it in fire tech. So that was the plan. Turned out I did my 6-month program. I did my EMT at the end. Like part of that program was doing a ride along. It was the most boring, depressing thing I ever did in my life, and it completely killed it for me. And I'm glad they made that part of their program. So the reason I bring this up is, before you start going and generating this master plan of how you're going to go and do this digital nomad lifestyle, what I would recommend is taking 2 or 3 or 4 trips, with your work, and saying, hey, is it cool if I work 2 weeks remote? Is it okay if I work 1 week remote? And go and do that. Go to a couple cities, fly out, do whatever that you expect it to be, and see if it actually works for you, because it's not for everybody. Working remote's great, but traveling and working remote is a completely different thing. It's something to consider, and it's a very hard thing to adjust to. So with that being said, I had a lot of fun. I enjoy it, so I don't want to say it's not for everybody. It's definitely for me. I would love to travel and bring April, but we're not quite there yet. She's studying hard for her boot camp, her coding boot camp, and I'm taking advantage of a little bit of excess income, which brings me to sort of my final point, is that you have to be able to afford it. Traveling on the road is very costly. Now, a couple things that you want to do is you want to make sure that you have low debt, if no debt. You want to make sure that you are maybe having passive income streams, like just be good with your money, and then make sure you can actually afford it. So some of the ways that you can afford it is by like for instance, when April and I have a plan to hit all 50 states sometime in 2021. And to do that, what I'll be doing is I'll be buying a trailer, and then we'll be taking the trailer to each state, spending about a week in each state, give or take, and just staying somewhere like some place where it has electricity and like Wi-Fi, or we'll have our Wi-Fi, and it'll be our sort of rent will be relatively low cost. However, if you plan on like traveling and doing like a Airbnb, it's going to get very costly, and you won't have like you'll have your own kitchen, but you have to buy food every time you're there. And so some of these costs, you have to make sure that financially you're able to do it, because what I don't want a lot of people to do when they sort of, that's what I'm looking for, when they idolize this sort of digital nomad lifestyle, is I don't want people to go and live their dream for a year and then come back to nothing. Or live their dream for a couple of years and then be completely broke, and layoffs happen, things like that. Bumps in the road happen in life, and you need to be prepared for them. And it was I forget what the Asian gentleman on Silicon Valley was on a talk show. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he said that his parents I think he said he was first generation, and his father told him, chasing your dreams is the road to homelessness. And there's some truth to that. So, as you go and chase your dreams, if one of your dreams is to go and travel and work as a digital nomad, make sure that you're still doing the things you should be doing, such as, and I'd make sure that before you start doing that, minus those sort of feeler out trips, that you've eliminated all debt, that you have, money being generated, that you can take that sort of lifestyle while still, investing in your 401k, while still saving money, while still, prepping to buy a house, and all those sorts of things that you need to do, so that you can make sure that when you go back in 2-3 years, I've worked with a developer who's been on the road for 5 years now, just traveling nonstop everywhere across the world. And when he comes back, he's taking care of his money. He's gonna come back to something. So I want you guys to maybe, if you are thinking about that sort of, to make sure that you can do it, or postpone it a year or two until you're not going to break the bank and you're going to come home to nothing after the experience, because those experiences are great, and you should be able to have them at any moment. But a lot of times once you come back to nothing, it's very hard to build that momentum again. So you want to keep that in mind. But with that being said, guys, that's my talk about being a digital nomad. I have a couple more trips planned. I'm looking forward to it. This last one was a lot of fun. It's really nice to be able to go and travel with some buddies, and especially people who are in the same field, so we can we can shoot the shit. We played a lot of board games and things like that, and went out a lot, ate a lot of good food. It was some good stuff. Maybe I'll share some pictures sometime. But with that being said, as always, thank you so much. If you're interested in any of my courses, there are links in the description below. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Hey guys, don't forget to hit that notification bell or smash that like button while you're at it. And if you're interested, I just released my latest course, the 100 Front-End Technical Question Challenge, which is there to help you pass those front-end technical interviews. There's over 100 questions. You can get it for just $9.99. The link is in the description below, or use coupon code CodingGod.